Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Question and answer session of Bill Barr.
Colleagues in the Senate, Senator Collins, put it best when she wrote to you last week. Her letter was dated April 1st. Did you get her letter?
Yes.
Okay. And you saw that she wrote, your decision to pursue this course of action in the federal courts puts at risk not only critical consumer protections, such as those protecting individuals suffering from pre-existing conditions, but also other important provisions of that law, such as the Medicaid expansion, dependent coverage for young adults to age 26, coverage for preventative services, and the regulatory pathway for FDA approval of biosimilar drugs. Unquote. The Department of Justice's refusal to defend our law, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, is distressing because of the harm that it poses to the physical and financial well-being of millions of Americans, and also because DOJ's refusal appears to be driven by political considerations rather than health care policy discussions or sound legal arguments. Attorney General Barr, you're not a health care policy expert, but your department is taking the lead on attempting a massive overhaul of our American health care system. So I want to make sure we agree on a few of the top-line facts. And let's go through a couple of quick yes or no questions at the outset. Number one, have you conducted or viewed an analysis to evaluate the effects of DOJ's litigation position to overturn the ACA? The effects on consumer costs and coverage. Have you done that analysis or have you reviewed one?
Well, when we're faced with a legal question, we try to base our answer on the law.
On the law. So the answer is no. And here's the thing. I can't imagine that you would take that kind of a drastic action without even trying to evaluate the consequences for the American consumers, the people using the health care, the people for whom these premiums are paid. But let's start the process of thinking through that.
In the event that
if you're successful in this lawsuit that you're supporting and the entire Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act is struck down, millions of Americans who currently receive health insurance coverage under the law are at risk of losing that coverage. Am I correct in that?
I think the President has made clear that he favors not only pre-existing conditions, but would like action on a broad health plan. So he is proposing a substitute for Obamacare.
The one that's going to come after the next election, you mean?
The one that will come down if and when.
Well, let me be the one to inform you, should the law be struck down, millions of people who get their coverage through the ACA marketplace would lose their coverage, and tens of millions more would see their premiums skyrocket. In addition, if you're successful, 12 million people nationally and 750,000 people in my home state of Pennsylvania who have coverage under the Medicaid expansion would also likely lose that coverage. Am I correct in that, sir?
Do you think it's likely we are going to prevail?
If you prevail, well, you're devoting scarce resources of your department toward that effort, are you not, Attorney General?
We're in litigation. We have to take a position.
The answer is yes.
We
So
take
you're
position
trying to
in
get
litigation.
It invalidated, and if you succeed, that many people will lose their coverage nationally from Medicaid and 750,000 from Pennsylvania alone, right?
I'm just saying that if you think it's such an outrageous position, you have nothing to worry about. Let the courts do their job.
If you my time is out. We'll come back to this. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being here today. For a couple of years at the end of the Obama administration, violent crime in America started to tick up. That means more robberies, more murders, and more assaults. I'm encouraged to see that the FBI's preliminary crime statistics that were released in late February.
So there was just a really key moment there that really stopped all of us here on set, and that was when the Democratic Congressman Matt Cartwright was questioning Bill Barr about the administration's case, siding with that Texas judge, to overturn the entire Affordable Care Act.
Right,
and
the administration's effort to block ACA, Obamacare, in court, and Attorney General, who is basically, the America's top lawyer, just said they're going to lose. John Avlon.
He seemed to insinuate that. So I tried to ask him, did you look at the impact on Americans and their health care if this case is won? And he's been pushing Barr on that. And then Barr, and we'll play the clip in a second, you're reading a little bit into his body language here, but he seemed to say, do you think it's likely that we'll prevail? And I think our reading, watching it closely in real time, is he insinuating that this was a political decision he was pushed into by the president and doesn't think it's a case that's likely to win?
It is Wednesday, the 10th of April of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh, it is just merely a lovely egg dish with a lovely hollandaise sauce. Not too much, not too clinging. Well, how are you doing today, folks? Sorry about yesterday. It's stupid to bring in personal family dynamics. I mean, everybody knows about them. They've only had, great and not so great novels written about it, and daytime TV exists upon the dissonance. And on two sides, what's being depicted in the teledrama and the dissonance that occurs on the other side of the screen from the viewer that causes them to watch that BS. Oh, my. So I do apologize for that. I guess you could say that, families can be the best of things and they can be the worst of things. And sometimes together. It's not either or. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how Steve Mnuchin, and we do have a little story about him in the Chef's Table part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. But the disrespect that he showed Maxine Waters, she's the chair of her committee. Trump officials, by and large, have been very disrespectful to every Democrat, whether they were in the minority or as in leadership now. But it's particularly telling when they go after women of color. They have a particular, I don't know, what's the word? I don't want to say disdain, because that doesn't quite say it all. But the dripping and insulting manner Mnuchin at Maxine Waters got a lot of people upset. And there are little turning points. I hate using tipping points because I just don't like that term. But only in jest do I like it. But a turning point. There are small little turning points that you can see happening. And I would also say, just as another aside, other Democrats in other committees would do well to follow Maxine Waters' lead. What was up yesterday in the committee with Barr? Would have been nice if some of those Democrats had had a follow-up question. Would have been nice if they had spoken with each other and maybe coordinated their questions so they don't waste time. on the same question. I mean, is that staff's problem? Maybe the staff in some of these other committees need to get on the ball. That Barr testimony for Democrats. They should have called the game. Show some spine. Almost reminded me of what Joe Biden did when he crumbled over the Anita Hill hearing. Yep. Weak-kneed, bleeding-heart liberals. They're the worst kind. They're the ones that always give up. Yes, so don't. Be Maxine Waters. Don't be Joe Biden at the Anita Hill hearings. It's probably a good way to go. What else was happening? Well, all sorts of things. Trump wants to. He wants to be cruel. He thinks cruelty is a good thing. Yes. And I keep hearing Steve Miller there. The Himmler. I really do like Santa Monica Goebbels. But the Himmler, Stephen Miller moniker, that's a pretty good one, too. I like that. Has the right alliteration. And this white nationalist fervor and white nationalist push, the purging of the security apparatus of our country. Wow. Now, I wouldn't necessarily blame it all on the Russians, because Stephen Miller has been thinking about this for a long time in his short little cruel Nazi life. And now it's coming to fruition. Yeah. And what do Americans do? Oh, I don't know. I'm going shopping. And like the good Germans who, I don't know, actually the good Germans were much more active than the general American population. And that's always been an argument. You know, is the general population, are they just, they're meaningless? You know, they're the amorphous mob, you know, best do without them? Or is it that as an egalitarian representative democratic republic, you want to make sure that amorphous mob is an educated mob, at least. And then that educated mob decides to go to the polls, and we have a peaceful transition of power. So, I think that a lot of the politicians who hew on the cruel side would hope that they have an illiterate electorate who will, I don't know, knee-jerk into some sort of irrational behavior. And then you have the other side that says, well, we need an educated electorate, so when these crises occur, it awakens the sleeping giant. And like Japan found out in World War II, that's a bad thing. And I would also say that what happened in Vietnam when the sleeping giant awoke, that great middle of America, and I don't mean geographically, I mean the middle of America, when they awoke and got tired of their sons, and they were predominantly sons, dying for a lie. Yes, that's what we called it back in the day. Things changed drastically. And it is our duty, as just American citizens, to make sure that the sleeping giant awakens and doesn't slumber through one of the most important transitions of the Great Experiment. All right, what's on the rest of the menu? Oh, well, at the top, of course, that was AG Bill Barr just expressing how utterly unfit he is to play any role in overhauling any aspect of health care in this country. Yeah, he wasn't just being hammered about the Mueller report. He was actually on those committees, appropriations and these financial committees, because, Congress controls the purse strings. They got to know how things are being spent. And Barr is defending some wacko judge in Texas who said, well, health care ACA, a black guy? Oh, that's obviously unconstitutional. All right. So never done that before in this country. The Attorney General defends the law in the books. Okay? And we're not doing it this time because the black guy did it, and everything is different. We don't need a UN ambassador. We don't need a Secretary of State. We don't need a Department of Defense Secretary. We probably don't even need a Joint Chiefs of Staff. Donald can do it all. Only he can. He promised. All right. Also on the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, Michigan conservatives lose the fight to remove the word democracy from the statewide school curriculum. That's how far to the right they've gone. They want to remove democracy. The word. Okay. Hey, guess what? Americans are getting $6 billion less in tax refunds thanks to the GOP. And I am trying to trademark the term "I told you so." And consumer group Public Citizen sued Betsy DeVos for censoring its website. Can't do that as a violation of the First Amendment, Betsy. After the break, we then moved to the chef's table where Mnuchin said Treasury lawyers consulted with the White House on Trump's tax returns. I thought you weren't supposed to do that. Oh, yeah, there's a different sheriff in town. County sheriff, too. That's the highest form of government, and Trump is just the highest county sheriff of the land. And guess what? Volunteer firefighters barricaded themselves in their rural Southern California fire station and refused to leave after being disbanded. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. The bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice the chat room link at the rightish of the page, and that is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, not the link, but the chat room. So do engage. If you would then take a look at the leftish of the page at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice the contribute button. Do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. If you could afford a espresso latte type of coffee drink once a month and send those funds our way, that goes a long way for us being able to not only pay our bills but save some funds so that we can buy some needed equipment. You do know that Netroots Radio has been continuously broadcasting 24/7, 365. That's pretty much what continuous means for 8 years. And we're happy to celebrate that birthday. Hi. All right. So do please become a recurring Patreon. We're unable to do this without you, and we appreciate the generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. I take care of at Justice Putnam. Fancy that. And you can also find the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's. I post that about 10 minutes before showtime and try to get the social media announcements out there right away in that little window. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. Pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, iHeart, and wherever fine podcasts can be found mixed in with every other podcast there exists in the world. Okay. Well, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, is by Lisa Needham out of Share Blue Media. In Michigan, conservatives just tried to literally erase the word democracy from their statewide teaching standards, but fortunately they failed. Conservatives swung for the fences, as they always do, proposing a far-reaching revision to how teachers instruct about history, economics, civics, and geography. The proposal, helmed by former Republican State Senator Patrick Colbeck, would have removed all reference to LGBT people in the civil rights section. It would have also prevented teaching about Roe v. Wade. Oh, my God. And they say that liberals are brainwashing people by educating them. Yeah, well, how you brainwash people is by educating them with lies then, right? The truth is the truth, folks. You can fudge maybe about history, but the truth still remains the truth. And how does one find out about historical truth? Well, one strategy is known as triangulation. Come at it from 3 different sides or more. So you can read the great policy analyses of the pundits of the day and glean some sort of idea of the truth. It's not the whole truth. You can find recordings, now by audio or printed, and find out the tenor of the events of the day and how that impacted, say, businesses or whatnot. And you can also go the oral history route of sorts and read the letters of people. And you find out how these greater world events impacted the lowly person. So the truth is the truth, history is history, and these, I don't know, newspeak Big Brother Nazis want to take the word democracy out of the curriculum? Well, the worst part of the Michigan proposal was one that Colbeck personally pushed for. He wanted a provision that required Michigan teachers to explain how the expansion of rights for some groups can be viewed as an infringement of rights and freedoms of others. In other words, this guy Colbeck says that, if these other boats are rising to my level, it must mean I'm sinking. By far the most absurd part of the Michigan proposal was that key references to democracy and core democratic values be removed from the curriculum, presumably because saying so invokes thoughts of the Democratic Party. In its place, conservatives demanded the United States be referred to as a republic. But that's going to comical lengths just to stop school children from saying the dreaded D word. It's true. Banning discussion of climate change is also a conservative favorite. And as we know, back in 2018, that was just last year, the Idaho legislature voted to ban all references to climate change from their state science guidelines. And state standards mentioning climate change in South Dakota, Virginia, and Maine are also currently under attack. It's precisely because all of these attacks that the Michigan victory feels so important. It's a struggle to fight these battles state by state. But it is vital to ensuring that conservatives don't mislead the next generation with their narrow and incorrect views on history. Cy Martin, also of Share Blue Media, brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Whoopee! $6 billion less in tax refunds through the end of March. Americans received that $6 billion less compared to the same time period last year. The massive drop coincides with the first year that the GOP tax scam was in effect, which means Obama's going to be blamed for it. They'll never give Obama credit for when all the job totals were still echoes and resonance from his administration. Oh, no. But this, I mean, after all, it was Obama who put babies in cages first. In addition to Americans seeing an overall drop in total refunds, significantly fewer Americans are getting a refund at all. Yeah, I mean, there's a story of like the family that's making $50,000 a year. Mom, dad, and a baby, right? A 3-member family making around $50,000 a year combined income. And it turned out that they owe $5,000. They were expecting to have a refund of about $5,000, and then they ended up not only not getting the refund of $5,000, they had to pay $5,000, and that was a $10,000 turnaround. So that combined income, $40,000. And do you think it was by accident that happened? Republicans structured the tax scam to increase take-home pay through 2018, but the amount was so small, many people didn't even notice. And even former Speaker Paul Ryan boasted about a woman receiving only $1.50 per week thanks to her tax scam. That's all she made more. Yeah, $1.50 more. Well, that's a couple of Snickers bars. Think of the calories, though. That could take you through the whole afternoon until dinner, if you don't crash from the sugar. Families are busy, and many don't necessarily notice a difference in the net pay, especially if it's spread out over 26 pay periods. But Wall Street banks are celebrating billions in kickbacks from Republicans, while families are seeing their refunds shrink or go away entirely. Jake Johnson of Common Dreams brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Public citizens sued Education Secretary Betsy DeVos for allegedly blocking access to the consumer group's website on her department's guest Wi-Fi and internal networks. That is a blatant violation of the First Amendment, Public Citizen President Robert Weissman wrote in an email to supporters. Users attempting to access Public Citizen's website through the department's guest wireless networks receive a message that access is in violation of your internet usage policy. We requested the department's policy for blocking access to internet sites, but it has not responded to our request, Public Citizen said. What we do know, Weissman continued, is that our website contains lots of information critical of DeVos and the department. Public Citizen filed its complaint in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia on behalf of David Halperin, a Public Citizen board member who frequently attends meetings at the Department of Education and uses its Wi-Fi network. The organization's filing alleges that the Department of Education is violating both the First Amendment and the Administrative Procedure Act by blocking access to its website. And I suppose DeVos and the rest of the Trump administration would say exactly. The department and DeVos have no legitimate justification for blocking access to Public Citizen's website, the group said in a press release. Public Citizen's website includes material on a wide range of issues, including information critical of the department and DeVos. Public Citizen also uses its website to inform the public about litigation including litigation involving DeVos and the department. Public Citizen is seeking a court order declaring the department and DeVos's action unlawful and enjoining them from blocking access to its site. No way are we going to let them get away with suppressing our views. And that brings us to our break. So let's go on to our break. And when we come back from the break, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, unnecessary lessons. What 9/11 and 7/7 were for their respective cities, the Lashkar-e-Taiba attacks in 2008 were for the Indian city of Mumbai. And it is painfully, even brutally, now recounted in the new Hotel Mumbai, named for the main, but not only target of those terrorists. As with most pictures like this, the story is built around a few victimized characters, some of whom emerge as heroes. Here we have wealthy newlyweds, played by Armie Hammer and Nazanin Boniadi, their infant child and nanny, plus a nasty Russian mobster oligarch, Jason Isaacs, and a resourceful Taj waiter, brought off by who else but Dev Patel. The terrorist characters are developed to some extent as well. The line director Anthony Moras must walk here as to portray them accurately without over-humanizing them for the sake of the still very much traumatized victims. While this limits illumination, we do see their comfort level with cell phones and modern weaponry, side by side with their amazement at flush toilets. We hear their doubts, but can see their clearly long past thinking for themselves. And there's one unseen character, a cell phone voice only, providing tactical direction and quote-unquote moral encouragement. If a measure of a movie is realism, Hotel Mumbai succeeds. It does have the issue of character survival time as a function of the actor's star power, but without spoilers, not to the extent of some similar projects. The emotive reaction to the displayed horror in a movie like this is obvious, but after so many incidents presaging so many movies, the question is begged as to the presence of a more significant point. There really isn't much of one in Hotel Mumbai, but it's a quality ride, and you will tense in your seat rooting for the heroes. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Of all the stuff you can buy on eBay, here's a new one: human teeth.
I think I probably averaged maybe $5 a tooth.
Kelly Keenan, a biochemist at Stockton University in New Jersey. She chased down the chompers to investigate what whitening strips do to a tooth's chemical composition. She stuck the teeth in styrofoam, applied the whitening strips per manufacturer instructions, and added some artificial saliva, a liquid mixture at the pH and with salts you'd find in regular spit. Treatments complete, she extracted proteins from the teeth and found that the more rounds of whitening the teeth experienced, the fewer proteins she could recover, because hydrogen peroxide in the whitening strips was snipping chemical bonds.
The bigger picture is that hydrogen peroxide can penetrate the enamel and dentin, and it can cause your proteins to break down, and smaller pieces are removed from those proteins.
She and her undergraduate students presented on that research at the 2019 Experimental Biology meeting in Orlando. Now, this is just a preliminary study, and the pulp of your teeth can replenish proteins in the dentin, though not the enamel, so it's unclear whether these effects would cause permanent damage in real living teeth. One thing's for sure, though: supplies of teeth for experiments seem to be plentiful.
I think I bought a set of 15, and the person's like, let me know if you need more. And this person also claimed that the teeth were from his mouth, which you don't have that many more to go. That's true.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As the days get longer and the weather warms, people of all ages will start to spring into action. Spring is a great time to breathe fresh air, stretch your arms and legs, and get physically active outdoors. Lack of physical activity contributes to obesity, heart disease, stroke, and other chronic health conditions. Fortunately, many communities are making it easier and safer to be physically active. Neighborhoods across the country are working together to create more public spaces for walking, running, biking, and other physical activities. Adults should get at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week, and children should get 60 minutes a day. If you find it hard to walk to a local recreation center, park, or playground, learn how to make your neighborhood a place that makes healthy living easier. Visit makinghealtheasier.org for information about ways communities can change to get more people outside and moving.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1930. That was the day Dolores Huerta was born in the mining town of Dawson, New Mexico. When her parents divorced, she moved with her mother to Stockton, California. It was there that Dolores experienced firsthand the discrimination that too often shaped Mexican immigrant children's daily lives. She studied to become a teacher. As a teacher, she was greatly disturbed by the poverty of the farm workers' children that came into her classroom. She decided to leave teaching to organize farm workers. So strong was her conviction, she made this decision to leave her secure job even though she had children of her own and the organizing position was unpaid. She partnered with Cesar Chavez to form the National Farm Workers Association, a predecessor of the United Farm Workers. She served as vice president of the UFW until 1999. She was a key organizer in the successful California grape boycott of the 1960s. That boycott won first-time union recognition for thousands of farm workers. In 1975, she was instrumental in the passage of the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act. In 1988, she was at a rally in San Francisco against the proposed policies of presidential candidate George H.W. Bush. The police violently broke up the protest. Police broke her ribs. They beat her so badly, she had to have her spleen removed. When she won a judgment against the police, she donated her settlement to farm workers. In 2011, she was awarded the National Medal of Freedom for her life of sacrifice for social justice. Several songs, or corridos, have been written in her honor, including this one by popular band Los Lobos.
En Dawson, Nuevo México, el 10 de abril, nació Dolores Huerta. Nadie se lo imaginaba que ella iría a encabezar.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Capitol Hill was buzzing on Tuesday. In his first appearance there since special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation concluded, Attorney General William Barr told the House Appropriations Committee that he'll release a redacted version of the Mueller report within a week. Barr said that the public version of the report will be redacted to conceal grand jury information, classified national security details that could reveal sources and methods, details that could compromise ongoing investigations, and information that could impact the privacy and reputation interests of, quote, peripheral third parties. Congressman Gerald Nadler, chair of the House Judiciary Committee, said he'll issue a subpoena to get the full unredacted report and its underlying evidence if Barr doesn't voluntarily submit it to Congress.
I don't intend at this stage to send the full unredacted report to the committee.
Barr's resistance setting off a pointed exchange over 6E, the rule governing the release of grand jury material. That material is meant to be kept secret except in certain circumstances. Barr says this isn't one of them.
I have to say that until someone shows me a provision in 6E that permits its release, the Congress doesn't get 6E. And the chairman of the Judiciary Committee is free to go to court if he feels one of those exceptions is applicable.
Barr's comments setting up a fight between Congress and the Trump administration over the fate of the Mueller report. Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee already authorized a subpoena for the full report and its underlying evidence. So far, Democrats haven't moved forward with it, but that could soon change.
I presume we're going to get the redacted report within a week. When we do so, if we don't get everything, we will issue the subpoena and go to court.
Barr also under fire today for how he crafted his summary of Mueller's conclusions.
All we have is your 4-page summary, which seems to cherry-pick from the report to draw the most favorable conclusion possible for the president.
Barr defended the substance of his letter.
I felt that I should state the bottom line conclusions, and I tried to use Special Counsel Mueller's own language in doing that.
Though only about 100 words in the 4-page letter were Mueller's, Barr added that Mueller declined to weigh in on it. Barr also acknowledged the White House counsel was given a heads up about the initial summary sent to Congress.
We did advise the White House counsel's office that the letters were being sent, but they were not allowed or even asked to make any changes to the letters.
But he refused to say whether the White House has seen the full report.
I've said what I'm going to say about the report today.
The Attorney General returns to the Hill on Wednesday to go before the Senate Appropriations Committee. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin sparred with Maxine Waters, chair of the House Financial Services Committee, after he said he needed to leave early to meet with an official from Bahrain.
I would just say that the previous when the Republicans, they did not treat the Secretary of the Treasury this way. So if this is the way you want to treat me, then I'll rethink whether I voluntarily come back here to testify, which I've offered to do.
Mr. Secretary, I want you to know that no other secretary has ever told us the day before that they were going to limit their time in the way that you're doing. So if you want to use them as examples, you have acted differently than they have acted. And as I have said, if you wish to leave, you may.
If you'd wish to keep me here so that I don't have my important meeting and continue to grill me, then we can do that. I will cancel my meeting and I will not be back here. I will be very clear if that's the way you'd like to have this relationship.
Thank you. The gentleman, the secretary, has agreed to stay to hear all of the rest of the members.
Okay,
please
so just
cancel your meeting
and
respect our time.
I am
Who is next on the list?
My foreign meeting. You're instructing me to stay here, and I should cancel.
No, you just made me an offer.
No, I didn't make you an offer.
You made me an offer that I accepted.
I did not make you an offer. Just let's be clear. You're instructing me. You are ordering me to stay here. What I've told you is I thought it was respectful that you'd let me leave at 5:15.
You are free to leave anytime you want. You may go anytime you want.
Please dismiss everybody. I believe you're supposed to take the gravel and bang it.
Please do not instruct me as to how I'm to conduct this committee. This is a new way. And it's a new day, and it's a new chair, and I have the gavel at this point. If you wish to leave, you may.
Wednesday, April 10th is the deadline set by the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Richard Neal, for the IRS to turn over 6 years of Donald Trump's tax returns. Mnuchin signaled they will not be cooperating. Meanwhile, at a House Judiciary hearing on hate crimes and white nationalism on social media, all hell broke loose. YouTube had to disable the comments on the live stream of the hearing because they were filled with anti-Semitic and racist remarks. House Democrats head off to their annual 3-day issues conference on Wednesday after being forced to scrap a key budget vote due to opposition from both the left and right flanks. Progressive members insisted on an amendment that would raise non-defense spending to the same level as defense spending, and a dozen or so conservative blue dogs threatened to oppose the bill without deeper spending reductions. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 Minutes. The U.S. blocked a deal between Major League Baseball and the Cuban Baseball Federation this week that would have formally allowed Cuban players to sign with American teams without having to illegally leave the island. That deal was agreed to late last year and entailed MLB clubs paying fees to the Cuban Baseball Federation amounting to up to 20% of a Cuban player's contract. The MLB argued the deal was a better alternative to the current way most Cuban players end up in the major leagues, by defecting during foreign exhibition games or paying human smugglers to whisk them out of the country, often without their families. A Treasury Department official summarized the Trump administration's objection to that deal in a letter to the MLB, contending the Cuban Baseball Federation was actually an organ of the island's government and should remain subject to a U.S. embargo. Roberto Gonzalez Echevarria, a professor of comparative literature at Yale University and author of The Pride of Havana, a history of Cuban baseball, agreed with that conclusion.
Every dollar that goes to that dependent entity winds up in the hands of the regime, mostly of the military who run everything that involves money in Cuba.
Critics say blocking the MLB's deal will push Cuban ball players back into business with unscrupulous smugglers, something the MLB had hoped to avoid. Others accuse the Trump administration of putting partisan political considerations ahead of the interests of Cuban athletes by embracing positions mostly designed to appeal to Cuban exiles. Gonzalez Echevarria said those arguments ignore the true culprit behind the exploitation of Cuban athletes.
If a Dominican player was to leave the Dominican Republic to play for the Yankees, he can do so, but not a Cuban. He cannot leave. It was the regime itself which did not allow people to leave Cuba, and they had to take to the sea. And then, of course, they fell in the hands of people who took advantage of the situation and charged them and so forth and so on.
Luke Vargas, New York.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 43 degrees, a little chillier last night actually. Went down about 38 degrees. Good thing I put all the new plant material in the tiny little greenhouse. Yikes. Good thing. And so it looks like currently the wind is light and variable out of the southeast. We're mostly cloudy and will remain mostly cloudy throughout the day. A little bit of a drying out period, though humidity is really high when we get to that. Are expecting a bit of rain tonight, turning to showers. Winds will be out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour in another couple of hours and will remain that way until tonight, when they will shift out of the west-southwest and remain at that clip at 5 to 10 miles per hour and out of that direction. And wind speed tomorrow, where tonight we're expecting, once again, showers late, and tomorrow about a quarter inch of rain throughout the day. So we'll look at that and what happens, because we are still in many areas under a flood watch, though not specifically in my area. The ground had to soak up a lot of water, and the Rogue River is rather turgid, quite muddy. And the reason for it is because it's hitting banks that haven't been hit by water for quite a while. In fact, the water is up to where all the old boat ramps used to be. I mean, still are, but now you can get your boat into the water from the boat ramp rather than going about another really 10 yards or more to get to the river. It's quite a sight. Okay. So we will be drying out a little bit. Pollen is rated at none. Air quality index is at 18 parts per million, in the good range. The daytime UV index, though, has spiked up in the high region at 6, whereas it had been down around 3 just a day or so ago. We'll see. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.26 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 90%. So it's still rather humid. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 55 and sunny. Paris is 52 and cloudy. Rome is 59 and mostly cloudy. Kiev is 60 degrees and fair. Kabul is 61 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 75 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 39 degrees Fahrenheit with a rain shower. Sydney, Australia is 57 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 47 degrees sunny with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore. And New York is 54 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. David Lauder of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. I've had to put myself in a bubble, but as I opened up a link here, I have noticed that Barr has been testifying again. This isn't another at-bat for the Democrats to, I don't know, why don't you swing for the fences? Come on now. Well, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said yesterday that Treasury Department lawyers had held informational discussions with the White House about an expected request from House Democrats for Donald Trump's tax returns. Informational. Oh, really? Democrats are pursuing Trump's returns under a legal authority that aims to prevent interference from the White House on the Treasury's decision whether to release the tax returns in what the White House Chief of Staff has called a political stunt. Yes, following the law from Teapot Dome scandal, which I think is probably from the same mindset as the current group that's in there now. I know, it sounds like a really weird thing. Teapot Dome scandal, what could that be? Yeah, graft and corruption, and much, much more. So this law was put on the books to prevent the kind of interference and collusion, shall we say, between the Treasury Department and the White House specifically. But that's just because I'm a romantic. In a second hearing later in the day, Mnuchin said the department had never sought permission from the White House on the issue regarding the release of the tax returns. As the presidential candidate in 2016, Trump defied decades of precedent by refusing to release the tax documents and has continued to keep them under wraps as he's been in the Oval Office, saying his returns were under audit by the IRS. And Mick the Prick Mulvaney said that Trump's tax returns would never be handed over to Democratic lawmakers in defiance of their efforts to learn more about the former real estate mogul's personal finances. Oh, you should rest assured the fellow from Reuters didn't call Mick Mulvaney Mick the Prick. That was a little addendum in this reporter's opinion. An attorney for Trump on last Friday blasted the request from Democrats as a misguided attempt to politicize the tax laws, accusing lawmakers of harassment and interference in IRS audits. Well, is it now? So what does it mean by purely informational? Were they fixing their story? Democrats are relying on a provision in the IRS code enacted in 1924 after Teapot Dome oil leases scandal rocked Warren Harding's administration. They say it requires the Treasury Secretary to turn over any tax returns to the chairman of the congressional tax committees who request them for investigative purposes. But if Congress takes the administration to court over Trump's taxes, little case law would be available to help guide judges. That is because both the statute cited to obtain the returns has hardly ever been contested, and because most document disputes between the legislative and executive branches of government are resolved by negotiation. Wow. Now that is deconstructing the administrative state.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Noor Al-Sabai of Raw Story brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Volunteer firefighters whose team was disbanded to make way for a professional force have barricaded themselves in their old firehouse amid a dispute about the legality of the move. The San Diego Union Tribune reported that volunteer firefighters from the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District refused to leave the fire station in Julian, California, after San Diego County officially took over following a court hearing and a special election. A team from the county, including a locksmith on Monday afternoon, were denied access to the firehouse after a group of volunteers and their supporters locked themselves in the building while they're occupying the firehouse. An attorney for the Julian firefighters claimed that a Friday court ruling nullified the results of a special election in which 54% of local voters opted to have their fire district join San Diego County. Corey Briggs, the volunteer firefighters' attorney, told the local agency formation commission, comprised of elected officials and tasked with overseeing fire, water, and sanitation districts, that they had no legal authority to dissolve the volunteer force during their Monday hearing. Briggs cited a California Superior Court judge's decision the week prior, in which an allegation that the fire board violated a state open meetings law when they gathered last May and decided to dissolve the volunteer force. Because the original action was illegal, Briggs said, everything that has happened since, including a September vote to dissolve the department and the results of the mail-in ballot special election that were certified last week, are null and void. The Union Tribune noted that the attorney was hired by a previous iteration of the region's volunteer board who opposed the county takeover to represent them, and that the current iteration is for the dissolution. Briggs' side was also the loser in a hearing last week, but he nonetheless used the judgment stemming from the loss as his main argument as to why the county could not order the dissolution. The standoff at the Julian Fire Station may be, quote, a multi-day thing, a county spokesperson told the newspaper. Wow, I guess we're going to have to follow that occupying force. Okay, we're going to get out of here, but we're going to meet up tomorrow for, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. So do join us then. Stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.